Welcome, everyone, to our final Tune-Up Tuesday presentation of 2025. Can you believe it's 2025? Excuse me. Can you believe it's 2025? And can you believe we're already at the end of this series? Today's segment is one that I'm pretty excited about. You know, we always have great presenters for our Journey virtual presentations. Today's is one of my very favorite, Sam Dolezal from UBT. Sam is and Sam, I always get your title wrong. You're the Wellbeing Officer for UBT, and she is our health and fitness guru. She's really just amazing. And anytime we can have her back, we welcome her with open arms because it's such a treat. So settle in as she's going to present on Tune Up Your Habits, small lifestyle tweaks for a big payoff. We've been having a great discussion before we got started here. And I just think that we're going to learn so much. Sam, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. All right, folks, let's talk about I'll say the elephant in the room, but our dominoes that you see on the screen. And I wanted to start with this photo because that's really what habits are. They aren't a singular task. It is really a point A to point B, and multiple actions happen within those 2 points. And so when we think about, I want to move more, I want to sleep better, I want to eat better, it's not at one meal we do that one thing. It's really doing that habit repeatedly. And that's usually the biggest part, is doing it repeatedly, which is what we're really going to talk about today. But I wanted to start with the dominoes so that as we think about habits, again, we're not just focused on the first domino or the second domino, but we're focused on all of the dominoes. Right. So as Kelly mentioned, that today's really going to be about how we can tune up your habits to give you big payoffs in the end. So we're not looking at huge lifestyle changes. We're looking at how can we make small adjustments throughout your days and your weeks. So after a full year of change, you really have a big end result. But a little bit about me, as Kelly mentioned, I am the Wellbeing Officer at Union Bank and Trust. But outside of UBT, I am originally from Nebraska, so I'm originally from a small town. I love brownies. I know I'm the wellness person, but I don't do edges. I'm almost 31 and I will cut directly out of the center. I love everything fitness and exercise, whether that's Husker volleyball, taking dogs on a walk, and then I really enjoy learning. So I do have my degrees in exercise science, higher education, and health education. So a lot of different things there on that front. But what are you going to walk away with today? You're going to walk away with really 3 key things. The first one is ideas on how to adjust your everyday habits to achieve major health wins. Again, as I mentioned, we're not talking about the first domino or the second, we're talking about all of them. So how can we keep a habit going? If you've ever set up dominoes, there's usually a point in time where one domino about halfway through doesn't quite get the next one, and then the process stops, right? That very final domino doesn't end up actually falling down. So how do we make sure that we're adjusting our habits so that all the dominoes flow together, that our habits support us all the way to the very end of whatever we want that win, that success, that kind of key piece to be? So that's number 1. Number 2, practical suggestions, whether that's physical activity, sleep, stress, technology. Really, it's how do we make adjustments? So again, we're tweaking. We're not trying to add new things in. One of the key kind of derailers, as I'll explain again, kind of that domino that doesn't quite hit the next one, is when we take on too many big changes or too many big new things. So usually I see this with weight loss is I want to exercise more. I want to eat better. I want to sleep better. I want to stress less. Those are 4 very, very big changes. Even just eating better is a big change in and of itself. So how do we have practical suggestions, again, that allow you to make those small changes, right? Get the dominoes going, but that we keep hitting the dominoes down the row. And then finally, how your social and physical environment shapes who you are and how you act. there is a new understanding in health and wellness known as social determinants of health. And this is starting to become better known and understood within the health and wellness field. But you are part of a larger environment, whether that's the people around you, the environment you're in, the actions you take, and how they interact with things. So, for example, if we go to the gym and the treadmills are always full, there's always somebody on them. Realistically, we're probably not going to spend much time on the treadmill. Not because you don't want to, not because you're not interested in not doing it or doing it, but simply because you can't. That's how your environment impacts you. I play tennis. I have found that winter is a great impact on tennis players. There aren't very many indoor tennis courts. So my tennis has essentially gone from once a week to not at all. So again, reflecting on how those external factors impact us, and then how do we work with them? We know that we can't tell everybody else, hey, I need the treadmill, or hey, Mother Nature, can you please be warmer so I can go play tennis? We understand that sometimes we can't change those things. So how do we, again, work with them? How do we understand that that's going to be part of the situation? So that is what you'll walk away with today. Now, as I mentioned, think about dominoes, right? That's really, you're going to kind of hear that theme quite a few times, but most of us want to go from being on our phones all the time, right? Being in front of us to being physically active. Again, that's kind of a big jump. How do we domino those two things together? Or we want to go from drinking pop to drinking more water, or drinking a lot of coffee to drinking more water. Again, that's a big switch in and of itself, but how do we domino that? How do we make those slight changes? Or you don't want to sleep in, you want to see the sunrise. Again, small changes versus saying, hey, you know what? I know I got up at 11:30 this morning, but tomorrow I'm getting up at 5. It's a pretty big shift. Even getting up 30 minutes early can be a pretty big shift. But none of these are impossible. And that's one of the key things I want you to remember, is that none of these changes, none of the goals you have are more than likely impossible. You may have to tweak your goal. You may have to try to reach it and say, okay, now I'm at a point where I'm halfway there. Maybe it's something I no longer want. Maybe it's something I no longer need, or maybe it's something that I need to tweak my goal. When I work with people, weight loss is kind of an easy one. They say, hey, I want to lose 50 pounds. And we get to about the 40 weight loss mark, and they go, you know, I feel really good here. I feel good in the clothes I have. I feel strong. I think 50 was maybe a little bit of an overshot. Okay, then you can make that decision then. Or they say, I want to lose 50 pounds. And we get to the 50-pound mark and they say, you know what? I still want to keep losing weight. I feel like I could continue to see benefit in losing weight. So think through that. Again, it's a domino piece. It's not a big jump. It's not a huge change. It's these small habits. All right, this is probably my favorite slide of all, because we have been told for so long that motivation and willpower are the end all be all. Just, you can do it, right? That's Nike's slogan, just do it. It can't be that hard, can it? Like, just do it. But motivation and willpower will get the first dominoes going, right? Motivation is that, and that willpower is really that starting move, right? It's getting the first dominoes going. But habits are what's going to keep those dominoes in line and evenly spaced, right? They are going to be the repetitive pieces in your days that are going to help you get from point A to point B. So common habits that most of us have done or do, again, when we think about this over the course of from a day to a year. So when you brush your teeth, let's say you do this one time a day, that is 365 brushings annually. Let's say that it takes you a minute to brush your teeth. That's 365 minutes every year that you brush your teeth. When we start to think about it that way, it's like, oh my gosh, that's almost 6 hours of you brushing your teeth over the course of a year. But again, when we do it for a minute every day, it doesn't seem like a lot. Taking the stairs to the office, if you have to walk up one flight of stairs, that's 250 flights of stairs hiked annually. Skipping one 12-ounce pop per day, whether you replace that with water or an unsweetened beverage like tea, that's 14,000, let me repeat that, 14,000 grams of sugar avoided annually. That's like 7 bags of sugar because you missed one pop. Now, my mom loved Diet Pepsi, and every time I see Diet Pepsi, all I think of is my mom. But she was a person who would do 4, 5, 6 cans of pop. So even if you cut out one, like in that example, I'm not asking you to cut out all of them. I'm just saying skip one, right? Skip your very first one in the day or skip one over lunch, get a glass of water instead. And think again, that number could go up even further for you. Getting 10 minutes of extra sleep during the week is 43 extra hours of sleep annually. There is actually some research that points out having a decrease of even 10 minutes of sleep off of your regular schedule is enough to have detrimental impact. So again, all of these things, when we look at them in the day, don't really look like very much, but when we look at them annually, that's a huge difference, right? That's a huge change. But most of us don't say, you know what? I'm going to go hike 250 flights of stairs today. No, I sure hope you don't say that. That's a lot of flights of stairs. Or we say, I'm going to spend 6 hours brushing my teeth today. That's not the point here, right? The point is that these small habits add up into much larger pieces, and they are what really help us have that healthy life that we're striving for. So here is a positive example when we talk about physical activity. So it kind of rolls into that same idea of ditching the motivation and the willpower, this idea that, hey, you know what, you can just do it. Just, you have to force yourself to do it. And that does work, but essentially that starts to kind of die, but the habits stay. So in example one, if you do one 30-minute session of strength training once per week, that's 1,500 minutes per year and over 3,000 calories. Again, plus other benefits, lots of other benefits. 2, adding a 20-minute walk each Saturday. That's over 1,000 minutes per year. Again, something you probably wouldn't say I'm going to do in one day or in 1 week, but when we say let's do 20 minutes of walking every Saturday, that seems way more doable. And then finally, completing 3 5Ks over the course of the year, that's a little over 1,000 calories burned. Again, when we start to look at these things, we're not asking for a 60-minute HIIT workout or a 60-minute yoga workout. We're saying, hey, do a 20-minute walk once a week, or do 3 5Ks over the course of a year. But how do we keep these habits going? Again, think of the dominoes, right? It's easy to get one kind of derailed or kind of off center. A real life example, again, kind of shifting to technology. And these are actually 2 personal examples of mine, which slightly make me cringe, but are also very real. So the first one, 15 minutes per day scrolling through Facebook. This is 91 hours annually. When I did that math, I was like, I can't believe it. That is so much time. That is 2.5 weeks of working full time that I'm spending on my phone scrolling through Facebook. This is insane. And then the other one is 1 hour per month online shopping for items I don't really need. I just like to shop. That's 12 hours annually. I could be using it for items I already have, right? Going through my closet or going on a walk or spending time with the friends who I keep saying, you know what, we should really, and we don't. So when we talk about habits, it's not just physical activity. It's not just nutrition. It's a lot of different areas that we can apply it to. And you can see that in this technology example. All right, so let's back it with a few facts here. I love facts. I love research. So I want to back up some of these pieces that I've mentioned around why then, when we talk about the habit piece of it, why it's important that we continue to do these things, not just in one large bout, but really continuously over time. So research shows that being fit lowers risk for all-cause mortality better than being thin. So if we had to weigh between the two, would you rather be fit? Again, be physically active in some capacity, or be thin? We would say when it comes to your mortality risk, we would say being fit is going to help you more than just being thin. So being physically active helps you. The second one, brushing your teeth once per day decreases your risk of cavities by 50%. So it cuts your risk in half. I would brush my teeth, spend that minute brushing your teeth. And then cutting your sugar intake in half can significantly reduce your risk of developing diabetes. So again, lots of good outcomes for doing a few basic things over the course of a day, a week, or a month, right? But again, the key part in that is that we continue to do those things. So it didn't say in any of these, if you run a marathon, all these great things will happen. That is not what it says here. It says when we make small changes, when we do things that support us, support our bodies in positive ways, we will see positive outcomes. And again, that comes back to habits. That comes back to continuous activity that moves us in the right direction. So one thing that usually starts to get folks a little kind of like, oh my gosh, I don't know where I'm going to put this at, right? I've got kids, I've got grandkids, I've got activities, I have work, I've got so much going on. Or maybe you're not always in the same place, right? Maybe you have summers off, maybe you travel, maybe you are in Nebraska during the summer when it's not negative temperatures like today, and you're in Arizona or somewhere else during the winter. But one of the key takeaways about the habits, about the pieces that I just mentioned, is that it's not about adding more. That's one of the pieces that I really want to kind of highlight, is that many times it's like, well, I need to add all of these things. I need to start doing all these things. And that's not the answer. We want to transform your habits to meet your wants and needs. We want to change them, because adding more usually doesn't help anybody, because most of us have full lives and we have things that we want to do. If I told you, hey, you need to start doing 60 minutes of physical activity 5 days a week, you might say, well, I don't know what I'm going to do that. Like I already have a schedule. So where will this go? So we are now going to talk about how do we change those habits? What are some things we can think about when changing those habits so that we're not always just adding more to the list, but that we're changing what we're doing to help support us. The second piece I want to mention is that it might feel like you're doing it wrong. And this is going to sound kind of weird, but the right thing doesn't always feel good, because it takes more emotional and mental energy to change. Your habits are like water in a rock. It's going to start to cut a nice groove in this rock, and you're going to say, okay, I don't want that groove anymore. I want to make a new one. Well, the water is going to try to go back to that initial groove. It's going to say, no, we already made this one. This one's pretty great. It's working. We're fine. We need to start making a new groove, and that's going to take energy and effort to start to make that new groove. If you are not a morning person, and I tell you, we need to start being up by 6 a.m., it's going to take a while for you to be a morning person. Now, if you're not a night person and I say, hey, you need to stay up till 2 p.m., it's going to take you a while to get to a point where you can stay up that late and feel good staying up that late. Change takes time. It's going to be an adjustment. One of the best pieces that I've ever heard is that you might feel the opposite, right? When you first start working out, you get really sore and you don't really feel that great. You don't really feel that strong. And then you start to develop skills and competencies and strength. And after about a month of going to the gym, you really start to understand the exercises. You're able to do them. You're able to increase in weight. But in those first few days, it's kind of tough. Same thing with changing of the habits. It's going to be kind of tough, right? You're going to want to revert back to that initial groove that those habits had cut. Making that new groove is going to be a little tough. But again, you can do it. Think about brushing your teeth. You can probably do all sorts of stuff now while brushing your teeth because you've had that habit ingrained over and over and over again. And when you forget to brush your teeth one day, you know you forgot to brush your teeth because you're just so used to doing it, right? You're so used to that habit. All right, so what habits should I start with? That's really where we're going to start. Where do I start? What do I want to change first? And when folks are ready to change, when they hit that point of I'm ready to change, they say, I'm going to do everything, right? It's like kind of like when you start cleaning your house. First, you start with your closets. Well, you get halfway there. Then you start in your kitchen. You get halfway there. Then you have your pantry cleaned out. And then you get to the point and you're like, this is really great and awesome, but I'm just going to order pizza, right? And I'm going to get out of my house because it's a disaster, which I have made. But same with habits. Stick with one. Pick one. Pick the closet or the pantry or the kitchen. Don't dig into all three because at a certain point, it starts to get too overwhelming. It starts to get too hard. And again, we're not trying to lean into motivation and willpower. Those are great things. They work great. But when we're trying to divide our habit energy and our change energy and our motivation energy in too many different directions, it's too tough. For all of you who have multiple kids, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. When you had one, it was different than when you had 3 or 4. So with the habits, we want to pick one habit. These are all major changes. They're going to impact you daily, regardless of what the change is. So pick one, the others will follow. If you want to eat better and drink more water, right? If you start to eat more, you'll notice you're probably drinking more water. If you want to stress less and you say, I'm going to start with sleep, right? These habits will start to hit the other dominoes. Step number 2 is to make it a smart habit. You have probably heard of SMART goals, but SMART habits are built in similar ways in which they allow you to kind of solidify what you're going to do and how you're going to do it to help you then create parameters in which you want to function. So again, I go back to weight loss, but if you say, I want to lose weight, go, okay, how do you want to do that? Well, do you want to eat better? Do you want to exercise more? Do you want to sleep better? Do you want to stress less? Do you want to quit tobacco? Do you want to get off your phone more? Like, there's a lot of different ways to lose weight. Or if you want to sleep better, right? Do you get off your phone? Do you shut off the TV? Do you go to bed earlier? Do you there's a lot of changes you can make there. So if we make it a SMART habit, right, then we can start to see some of those changes. So SMART is an acronym for having it be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. I encourage you to lean into this SMART piece, even if it isn't totally written out when you write out what you want your habit to be, because it will at least encourage you to think about all of these pieces, right? Even if you write out your habit and then go back to this and say, hey, am I meeting all of these? The one that I do want to make a note of is the time-based one. Since this is a habit, you may not have an end date in which you want this to be solid by. It may be a more long-term piece. But if you're saying that I want to be more physically active, or I want to meal prep more, or I want to, you may have a time component in which you're saying, I want to exercise for at least 50 minutes every week. That may be your time-based component versus actually having an end date in which you would want to actually achieve this habit. That's a little bit different than the goal part. So let's kind of walk through an example. So the non-SMART goal is I will do more exercise in 2025, which is great, right? We want to be more physically active. But that could be, I want to walk to my mailbox for 10 minutes, or I want to go to the gym for an hour every day. And those two things are very different. So the SMART goal would be, I plan to go to the YMCA in the afternoons from 3 to 4 p.m., 3 times per week, to walk on the treadmill or swim in the pool. And again, now we can start to solidify what days we're going to go. We already have our time, right? We know when we're going. But we can see there how this habit then has some kind of space to it. So think of the non-SMART goal as the stick figure that I would draw, right? You know it's a stick figure, but there really isn't much to it, right? I forgot the nose, it's missing hair. And the SMART goal is the stick figure drawn by a true artist, right? There's just more to it. You're able to understand better what we're trying to accomplish here. So we want to build those SMART goals. We want to build those SMART habits. Now I'm going to shift in how do we actually do this? So we know that we need to pick one, and we know that we need to make it SMART. But we don't have to do it by ourselves. So I'm going to talk through a few things to kind of think about so that you're able to, again, build this goal, this habit into more of the artist drawing versus the Sam stick figure drawing, so that you understand where you want to go and how you want to get there. The first one is to use mobile apps for good. Whether that is an alarm clock to get you up, whether that is a physical activity tracker, whether that's a nutrition tracker, screen time tracker, whether that is, I want to spend more time FaceTiming with my grandkids. I don't get to see them a lot. Apps like that, using them for good. We typically think of technology as kind of being this black hole, right? Where our time goes, our energy goes, our money goes, but it doesn't have to be that way. There are a lot of really great resources out there for you. So using technology that you have for good. And then using what you have, what you physically have. So if you want to be more physically active and you bought the treadmill or you bought the gym membership, use it, right? You bought it with good intentions. Let's continue to utilize those resources you've already put into place. That may be again, if you say, I really want to paint more, that was really one of my goals when I retired. Okay, do you have all your paint things? Is this enjoyable? It's usually a very small barrier to keep us from the next step in our habit, right? One of the things that I didn't like about running was that I always had really old running shoes. I was like, Sam, go buy some new running shoes. You'll like running so much more. Something like that. So again, thinking through, use what you have. Do you have everything you need to be successful? And if not, kind of reevaluate. Again, going back to that, maybe we get a few dominoes in and realize, well, that kind of needs to shift a little bit. That's okay. We can go to a different domino track. We just want it to keep going. We just don't want it to fall short versus where we want to go. And then finally, use your strengths, what you have strengths of as a person. Maybe you have a best friend who's like a super walker and you want to be like her. Go with her. Go with her if you can. Even if you're not physically in the same place, maybe you can talk on the phone during that time. Maybe you can share with your Apple Watch your activity with each other so you can motivate each other. Social butterfly, join that group fitness class. If you're an at-home chef, right, you really like to cook, that's totally me. I'm like banana bread queen over here. But try new recipes with healthy ingredients. Just don't put black beans in. Your fiance probably won't like that. Mine sure didn't. He was kind of appalled I put black beans in brownies, but so be it. I thought they were great. If you're a tech whiz, find ways to have tech help you be healthy. Again, that looks different for everybody. Everybody's strengths are different. Maybe you have a friend or family or social group that you can lean into if you're not feeling like, hey, I have what it takes to be supportive, right? Let's talk about nutrition for a second. You say, hey, I'm just really not even sure where to start, but I know I want to improve my nutrition. Do you know of somebody you could reach out to? Does your provider maybe have a referral that they could give you? Say, hey, this is something I really want to look into, get some support on. Physical activity, if you're saying, hey, I really just need some accountability, and when I walk in the gym, it's super overwhelming. Maybe get a personal trainer, right? There's a lot of those pieces out there for you. It's just leaning into them and helping them, again, start to connect those dominoes for you. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about different kind of areas of wellness and some suggestions there. And we'll talk through some of the social and environmental factors that impact these as well. Again, those social and environmental factors are things to reflect on. You may not realistically be able to change them. I go back to my treadmill example. You go in, the treadmills are always full. Waiting for the treadmill may not be an option for you, but how can we adjust so we still try to reach our goal? So in my case, with my smart habit, I plan to be on the treadmill or swim, right? I had an alternative to that. So let's talk about physical activity habits though. Combine a want with a need. Maybe you really like podcasts. Only listen to your podcasts when you're going on a walk. That is exactly what I do when I listen to audiobooks. I either only do them when I'm driving or I do them when I'm working out or going on a walk or doing something physically active. So I don't ever listen to my audiobook just sitting on my couch because I know that I need to pair it with something I need to do because I'm getting to do the audiobook, which is what I want to do. So when we combine a need and a want, it helps us accomplish both. Again, though, think about the social and environmental factors that may or may not work for you. But again, think through those pieces. Help the habit. Help yourself out here. Make it fun, make it engaging, make it worthwhile for you. Nobody wants to clean their showers, right? Even though there is value for us doing that by having a clean shower, but it's not something that's really fun or engaging. So we tend to avoid those tasks we find boring, disengaging, or don't have a lot of value to them. But find things that you like, are challenged in, or feel are a good use of your time. I had a friend who bought so much spinach and threw so much spinach away because he didn't like spinach. I finally said, don't buy spinach anymore. It's not helping you because you're just throwing it away. It feels good to buy it and it feels good to say, I'm going to do this, but you have no plan with it. You have no recipes to use it in and you don't like it. Buy something else. Buy corn, buy apples, buy bananas. It's like, buy something that is going to help the habit of eating better. So again, think through that. The social and environmental factors. If you know I don't like working out by myself, that's just not who you are, Again, maybe that personal trainer makes sense. Maybe that hooking up with that friend to go on the walk makes sense. Maybe joining group fitness makes sense. But we sometimes have to help that habit by making it something we want to do. I know that I felt that way when I finally got an electric toothbrush because I didn't like brushing my teeth, but I knew that it was something that I realistically needed to do. So I invested a little bit of money to help that habit. And then finally, when we talk about physical activity, don't go solo unless that's totally who you are. We have 2 dogs. They are the biggest incentive we have to get out and be active. So again, whether that's human or pet, find a buddy to get activity in with. That looks different for everybody though. But again, be mindful that if you're not somebody who doesn't want to go solo, you don't have to. But just work through it. One of the things that I like to do when I lived in town was I like to walk to the post office because I always got to see the postmaster and at least have a hi, hello, and then I would walk home. So I at least had some interaction, somebody at the end to say hi to and talk to a little bit. Again, that looks different for everybody, but keeping that in mind that maybe that's where you go, maybe that's what supports you the best. All right, let's talk about sleep habits, which sleep is really the foundation of our health house, is the way that I would word it. Not enough sleep causes everything else to kind of crumble. It's pretty hard on everything else. So when we get good quality sleep, we support every other one of our health habits. That includes nutrition, we make better decisions, physical activity, our bodies heal. That includes stress, that includes financial decisions, kind of that list goes on and on. But sleep is the foundation of our health. So I would encourage you to create a pre-sleep routine. This may be visible or invisible to you, is the way that I word it. You may have a routine in which you follow, a habit in which you follow, so that you know by the end you're ready for bed, and you may not. It may always look different, but our bodies are creatures of habit. They will start to follow some segmentation of a habit, of a routine. So consciously start to make that pre-sleep routine to prep you for bed so that you have something built for you, that you're not always kind of grabbing at straws and then laying in bed wondering why you're not asleep. The pre-sleep routine is also a good time to determine what you're doing the rest of the day to set you up for sleep. Are we eating dinner too late? Are we having caffeine too late? Even for some folks are saying, if I have caffeine after noon, right, like after 12 p.m., that's too late for me. I have a hard time going to bed. You may say, well, the only time I can get my workout in is at 8 o'clock and then I can't fall asleep. And then I like start to kind of think through those pieces, right? What's that pre-sleep routine look like? And how far back do we need to go to really support us so by the end we're ready for bed? Caffeine is one we commonly talk about. Again, it's something that we know stimulates us and keeps us awake. Typically, the saying is about 3 to 4 p.m. if you're planning to go to bed between like 9 and 10, but for some folks, it can impact you even longer than that. So you may say, I can't have caffeine after 1 o'clock. And then the last one that's starting to become better understood is really how screens impact our sleep. So one of the kind of fun facts with screens is that they emit a blue light. That blue light decreases your sleep hormones. So the more blue light you're exposed to, the less sleepy you are. They say that screens before bed, at least within the last hour before you go to bed, are really a no-no. Stay away from those. There are phones and devices out there now that you can change the screen so it's not as heavily emitting blue light. You can change the brightness. Kindle, I know, has a feature that allows you to kind of turn that blue light piece off. But determine if that's actually going to support you. Is scrolling through Facebook and reading all the things you read on Facebook helping you get to bed? I know for me, I do better if I stretch or I read for 10 minutes instead. Again, everyone is different. Think about those things. There are some things when I talk about sleep that you can't control, whether that's a kid or grandkid waking up at 3 o'clock in the middle of the night because they had a bad nightmare. It's the neighbor above who gets up early and their alarm clock is so loud. The dog barking, all of those things can impact you, but how can you support yourself? Right? That's really the goal of these habits is how can we help our dominoes line up so that hopefully when we have those external factors impacting us, it's less of an impact. because we know that we were in a good place to begin with. All right, one of my second favorite slide. I already have one favorite slide, so here's my second one. Stress and mental health habits. We as a society are becoming more and more educated in how stress and mental health impact our health. And they've shown that loneliness has the same impact as 15 cigarettes a day. They have shown that loneliness might be the next epidemic that we face. It's really the next wave of wellness. Is that the way? That's the way that I would word it. It's really the next wave of wellness. And so this slide is really important, again, when we talk about sleep, specifically those other health habits we're trying to accomplish. But a few things that we can do to support ourselves. Again, we're talking about small habits here that we can tweak, change. Practicing meditation or mindfulness. So how do we build this in? Again, we're not trying to add in more. I'm not asking you, hey, on top of the other mountain of stuff you do in a day, add in 15 more minutes of meditation. I'm saying, how can we kind of tweak the things we're already doing and adding these pieces in? So for example, when you're putting gas in your car, waiting for the microwave at home, maybe you're sitting in a doctor's office. Can you do a meditation or a mindfulness session? This is another good example of using apps where there's a guided meditation or mindfulness session for you. They can be as long as a minute. They can be as long as an hour. That is up to you and what you choose. Or you could just do that on your own. You could just say, I'm just going to relax for the next 60 seconds. Or I'm going to relax until I hear my gas shut off. I did not put on here when you're waiting at a stoplight or waiting for a train or whatnot, because we do need to be active in those rules. But in some of these other situations where that end doesn't necessarily force us to act right away, they could be good fits for you. Building in breaks. I have heard this more and more from our associates at UBT over the years, is that we move from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, and there is no break, right? We start in the morning, we get up, we get dressed, we get kids ready, grandkids ready, we go to work. Then we go to the kids' practice and we go home and make dinner, and then we try and get to bed, and it's just a lot, right? And again, a lot of that hasn't changed with age. You may find, even if you don't have a full-time 40-hour week, that you don't necessarily have breaks during your days. We are a generation now where we're not wired for breaks, but building in breaks, not only from activities, but just a break from life. And when I say a break from life, I don't mean, hey, I'm going to check out for the day, but to take a little bit of time to enjoy your cup of coffee, to take a little bit of time to read that magazine, to enjoy that book, to enjoy that walk, right? Not feeling the pressure that, oh, I only have 30 minutes for this walk. Like, we're just going to plug it in here and play. Like, enjoy that time. So proactively scheduling these breaks before we need them will help us stay on top of your game as well. One of my best analogies is you have a car and it has 4 tires. Each one of those tires is a different area of health and wellness. So physical, financial, social, emotional, and then finally you have our nutrition piece. Now, at any point in time, if one of those starts to get a little flat, right, the alarm sounds, but we can still drive on that. Now, if we keep driving on that flat tire, though, eventually we will ruin that tire. Even though you still have 3 other good tires, our car is still not moving. So we need to be mindful to build in those brakes, right? We need to take time to stop at the gas station and put air in that tire so that we can keep moving forward, because we don't want to get stuck on the side of the road when we're trying to get to Disney World, right? Take that day, take that time to put air in the tire, to put a break in your life so that we can keep getting to where we want to go. Again, this is another example of, I'm not saying put in a 20-minute break every day, add it to the stack of things you need to do, but where can you build in those breaks? Where are maybe we're saying yes, where realistically maybe we need to say no? That actually happened to me today. I was supposed to have a meeting this afternoon, but we could do it next week. And I'm like, you know what? We just got back from a vacation. We had a federal holiday yesterday. It is freezing outside. Let's just move it to next week, right? Building a little bit of a break, being able to transition a little bit there. And then finally, schedule your supports in. I mentioned this earlier. My friends and I, it's always, we should get together. And there's not really that next, we actually got together. So change it to, are you available on this day, so that some of those pieces become in play, right? Think about our habits. It's going to be that domino effect. Some of these habits we're going to have to line up a little bit earlier than others. So how do we do that? How do we schedule that in? How do we build on our breaks? How do we support ourselves down the road? Scheduling your supports is something you probably want to do. And maybe it's something where I'll talk about this a little bit, is double dipping, having a win-win situation out of that. But I know this one, the nutrition habits, is one that a lot of us think about. And I want to spend a little bit of time on this one and then also have some time for questions for us. But meal planning and meal prep are going to help you in the long run. Again, this is putting air in the tire proactively. Failing to plan is planning to fail. So having some sort of idea of what your meals will look like for the week is helpful. Some sort of idea. You don't have to have it all figured out. But knowing, hey, we're going to eat out these nights and we're going to cook these nights. This is probably a few of the things that I know that I have that we can make will help you. One of the things that we do is burrito bowls. If I know that we are short on time during the week, I will say, okay, we're going to do a bag of corn because we can microwave it, a bag of rice because we can microwave it. We have salsa, we have sour cream, we have cheese. Those all come directly out of the fridge, and we'll buy some grilled chicken, right? That's about a 10-minute meal that we can pull off versus getting a really wicked, awesome, delicious, probably not super healthy burrito from a to-go place. So having some idea of meal plan and meal prep, again, you might feel this is adding to my list of things, but this is the list where this helps you make those decisions ahead of time, right? Creating that habit so that it helps us down the road. The second one is carrying a water bottle at all times. And I'm not joking when I say at all times. I have a water bottle with me everywhere. I have an empty water bottle in my office, just in case I forget the water bottle I'm supposed to bring from home. But if you need to drink more water, then you need to have more water on hand. Keep that water bottle with you. Realistically, you can probably fill it in a lot of different places, but you're not going to be able to get a water bottle from a lot of different places. And then finally, choosing color. This is again, just something to think about. We can't always control when we go out to eat, or maybe you're not the one preparing meals, but choosing color. Aim for colors to include more variety on your plate through fruits, veggies, and proteins. Again, that can look like a lot of different things, especially if you have allergies, for example, or you're cooking for somebody with allergies or intolerances. But again, think through these things. How can they support you to where you want to go? This is kind of that first section of dominoes here. How do we create these habits to help us get to where we want to go? And then I want to talk a little bit more about technology, because it is something that tends to be, as I mentioned earlier, kind of that black hole of time, energy, and money. But it doesn't have to be. So using technology to your advantage, setting up screen time limits, turning down the brightness, and then setting reminders help you accomplish your tasks. This last one I'm going to read twice for you. Let it support your life, but not be your life. I'll read that again. Let it support your life, but not be your life. More and more of our time is spent in front of screens, whether that's the TV, our laptops, our iPads, our Kindles, our phones, right? Screens are everywhere. But try to spend more of your time in nature, in front of real people, and in tasks you enjoy. We realistically don't regret the time that we lose from being in front of screens, but we regret the time in which we didn't get to do these other things. So I recently went to the Grand Canyon. We went in September. It was great. It was awesome. It was a total bucket list activity for me. But I did notice how many people were taking photos or taking videos or, trying to like really hold on to that memory in a digital format. And it's like, I just want you to experience this memory fully instead of only remembering this memory through your phone. Again, we see that at a lot of different places. I've seen that a lot at Husker Volleyball, where folks will Snapchat it or video it or whatnot. But again, try to experience it for yourself in the moment while you're there versus trying to channel it through that screen. So let technology support your life, but let it not be your life. All right, social habits. As I mentioned, put it on the calendar, make it happen, work to make those things happen. This is probably the hardest habit where you can't control the others in your group. I see that with my friend group. I say, I'm available on these 2 days at these 2 times with this work. That doesn't necessarily work for them always, or they won't respond. But again, you can't control that. You can only control you. Finding that balance of alone and together, variety is the spice of life. So making sure that you set aside that kind of break time for yourself, but also that break time with others. Why is this a habit? This is a habit again, because it's going to take some concerted effort to be ahead of the 8 ball to really get it in track that, hey, I know that I need to have some social life, whatever that looks like, in order to have a healthy life. And we're going to have to stay on top of that and in front of that and create it as a habit where, well, I see my friends once in a blue moon when we actually get a bullseye with our calendars, but instead make a concerted effort to make it happen, right? And we have those daily tasks, those weekly, monthly things. I have one friend group, we meet once a quarter. And before we leave from our first quarter one, we already set up our second quarter one. So we're not calling each other, we're not texting each other back all the time. It's really then already there before we even leave. And then finally learn how to make it a win-win. Again, combining things, kind of as I mentioned earlier, combine that want with that need. Maybe you need to go Christmas shopping. You're not a Christmas shopper, but you have a friend or a spouse or a family member who is a deal queen. Maybe you take them with you. Make that the win-win. I hate wrapping Christmas gifts. I don't know why. It's not my jam. But Beyonce and I, we do it together. We kind of make a game out of it, and it's really fun. So again, how can you kind of find those wins? That's going to be the habit again, because you're gonna have to work at that. You're going to have to really try instead of having it be the afterthought. So that next year, then, that's your habit. That's what you do. We have that kind of ingrained in us, but that initial, again, moving of that groove is going to be a little tough. All right, so your big key takeaways. Again, this isn't about more habits. It's about transforming your habits. How can we change them to support us? Combining the want with the need, as I mentioned, the audiobook version, but we can do that with a lot of different things. Maybe you love chocolate, right? Isn't that everybody? I hope everybody loves chocolate. But if you love chocolate, maybe you're looking at how can I make chocolate Greek yogurt muffins, right? How can I support? I want the chocolate, but I also need to eat a balanced breakfast. So combining that want with the need. We might have to go down before we can go up. Again, the right thing might not feel like the right thing. It's going to take time to make that change, and that's okay. And it's okay if we end up changing our change, right? If that ultimate end goal changes a little bit for us. But again, we just want to keep those dominoes moving and then making those SMART goals. So again, having that kind of fleshed out idea, we don't just want the stick figure. We really want the artist drawing so that we're able to see how we're going to get there and where we're going to go. But thank you for joining us today. As Kelly mentioned, questions are very welcome, so throw those in the chat. Kelly, how would you like to do the questions?
How would I like to do the questions? I will. That is a great question. I am looking at the chat box now. And folks, if you have the capability, have a question, just go ahead and type it in the chat feature. If you do not, you can go ahead and unmute your mic and I'll attempt to take questions in a civilized manner. We had that happen last time. Some folks couldn't take questions in the chat. Oh, I have one. How long do I need to go to the gym before it becomes a habit?
There was a statement around for a long time that they really thought it was about 21 days. Now the understanding is usually it's more about 45 to 60 days, and that's not necessarily of doing the habit, but of making the change of your old habit. So if your old habit was to go to the coffee shop Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and you're changing that to, I'm going to go work out and then I'm just going to get a to-go coffee, that's going to take you a little over a month, maybe 2 months to really solidify then that change in which it then is a habit anymore. So it doesn't feel like, well, I should go to the coffee shop first. It may take some people a shorter amount of time or a longer amount of time, depending on what change they're making.
That makes
But again,
sense.
yeah, it looks a little bit different for everybody, but I would say give it the college try. Give it at least a month. Again, it doesn't have to be an every single day thing, but you're going to start to feel where you're pulled to. I always go to the gym at 9 a.m. Like you're going to start to feel that natural pull since we are creatures of habit.
Great. This is good stuff. Oh, how much screen time is too much screen time? This might be somebody that was on week 1 with Kelsey, and they're testing you to see if you give the same
I
answer.
love it. Pop quiz, pop quiz. I love and hate this answer, but I would say a lot of times it depends on exactly what you're using your screens for. So in my case, I spend a lot of time in front of a screen because my job is primarily in front of a screen. But when we talk about like phone screen time, extra screen time, I think the recommendation is not over an hour. I don't know if that was the same as what Kelsey said, but that is what I have heard.
I think, well, the answer that she gave, Sam, was 2 hours outside of work or
Okay.
class. The 2 hours, but then again, that gets into a real gray area. Are you watching something educational? Well, then is that part
It
of
changes a little bit.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, I think those are very similar answers. That's good. You gave such a comprehensive presentation that folks don't have a lot of questions, although I'm seeing a lot of thank yous. And I echo that sentiment. Excuse me. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Stay warm.
You stay warm too. Sam, it's been an absolute treat having you here today, and I thank you so much. I, I'm going to invite you back, and I'm hoping you'll come. I learned a
Absolutely.
lot. Thanks. I learned a lot, and I hope everyone else did too. Thanks to all of you for giving up your part of your Tuesday afternoon for us. This concludes the Tune Up Tuesday series for 2025. I'm Kelly Robert saying, be well. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the spring. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.